All right, so let me begin recording this.
Recording in progress.
There you go. I'll be double recording it so we don't lose this conversation. So, Steven,
Exactly.
how are you today?
I am doing fantastic. I'm having a great day. Can't complain. Can't go wrong with that. Yes, indeed.
Nice. Um, Tell me, I want to start talking a little bit about your life story. Tell me how you came to where you are today. I assume you didn't fail in a bucket of Red Bull and ended up being a huge guy. There must have been some hard work behind that. So do tell me how was your life? How was your life been until this point?
Yeah, you know what? I grew up. I grew up in a family of four brothers. I have three other brothers. I should say we're a family of four brothers. I was the youngest. I'm the youngest, and the smallest. I was the skinniest. And I got made fun of a lot. So I started working hard, working out, and everything like that. So I started building up myself. And when you start doing things like that, you start realizing there's a lot of potential that you can have if you just place your mind to it. If you just put yourself in the mindset that you want to be better and want to do better for yourself. So, those type of ideas started creeping up into my life. Started working hard, doing whatever I can to make it to survive. I was homeless twice in my life, it's one of those situations where you don't let life get you down. You make the most of your situation. You do whatever you need to do to survive and to be successful. And I was determined to do so. Going throughout my life, I've had a lot of ups and downs, a lot of trials. Oh, goodness gracious, a lot of trials. But, at the end of the day, it's all about perseverance. It's all about consistency. It's all about discipline. And that's what my life embodies, even at this point. Then, getting into my political career, it was one of those situations where I just want to understand the Trump presidency, 2017, 2018. I started doing my research, trying to understand the world, trying to understand my environment politically. A lot of, especially in America, not a lot of Black people are into politics. We get to sports, but that's not necessarily into politics. So I wanted to try my hand at that, see what was going on with the Trump presidency and things of that nature, and started realizing that I'm not a victim, which is something that back in the day, I was always raised to be a strong individual, and I had that type of work ethic, but I still had a lot of differing mentalities that held me back in certain ways. And once I finally let go, and fully embraced who I was, and that I am a victor, and that I can do whatever I set my mind to. It was something I did long before, but then after a while, you start falling into the same rut, and I started had a reawakening, so to speak, and now I've been trying to use my voice, do as much research as I can to try to impact my surroundings, impact the Black community, and bring some awareness, things of that nature. So it's been quite a journey, and I'm still on it. It's still a journey that I'm still taking. So,
It never ends.
I'm enjoying every bit of it. Yeah, it never ends, not at all.
Tell me now. Here, from what I'm hearing from you, there's all kinds of interesting questions that I think are worth discussing. How much of your struggle would you say that it was related to a system of racism that kept you down, like we hear all the time?
hmm Yeah, I don't think any of it was, to be honest, because when we look at systemic racism, especially here in America, it's one of those things that it's a big boogeyman, right? Now, if you were to talking about the '60s, the '70s, and '80s, possibly I can understand the idea of systemic racism. It's one of those things that with redlining and different little governmental things that happened. I can understand that. But, at this point, especially in the 2010s, 2020s, and here and now, none of that is around. That's not a thing anymore. So growing up, when it came to systemic racism, of course, I blamed it. Any failure I had was, oh, they were racist. They just didn't want a Black guy. But at the end of the day, I look back at these situations and circumstances I've been in, And I come to understand that a lot of it was me. It was my own failures. It was my own issues. It was my own inability to capitalize on different situations that I knew were beneficial for me. But for one reason or another, I decided to not go that route, and it negatively affected me. So when it comes to the idea of systemic racism, it's definitely a boogeyman. And I wish the Black community here would wake up to that and understand that it's nothing but a mental block that you're putting on yourself and your success.
I've seen, when you study the story of, say, the progressive left, you see people like Ever Marcuse that came into the States and basically turned university into a socialist concentration camp. Is that, were you able to see that? I don't know if you went to college or you have friends who have. Were you able to see the impact of socialism as they were going through this type of education?
You know what? I went to college, but this was back in 2003, and I wasn't really aware at all, especially when it comes to socialism, anything political, any type of political system. I didn't recognize it at all whatsoever. I was more into sports. I barely even went to class at that. I dropped out. But, it's one of those things I didn't pay attention to much, but it wasn't really prevalent as it is now. In the here and now, with the wokeism, all these woke individuals, everyone wants to be woke. Everyone's pushing all these different agendas that are anti-capitalist, that are anti-American. And you see the rise of socialism, right? And I talk to a lot of people who have gone to these college classes, and that's all they experience from their professors and their educators. And it's really scary. It's really scary because they always talk about this perfect socialistic utopia, even though they've never been to a socialist country. They never lived in a socialist system, yet and still they're the ones that promote socialism the most. And you talk to a lot of these, I talk to a lot of immigrants that come here to America from some of these socialistic countries, and they're like, this is the worst, we fled this. And now we're going to this, we're coming to this college or university where the teacher is promoting the very thing that we fled. And these immigrants talk to these teachers, and the teachers, of course, they think they're high and mighty. That wasn't the right kind of socialism. It wasn't the proper kind of socialism. It wasn't really tried. It's like, get out of here. These people left it. They ran from it. They fled from it. They would have a better idea of what it is that you're talking about than you do. So it's something it's a disgusting thing in America. I cannot stand it. It's so annoying, and it's one of those things we combat on a consistent basis.
I see that a lot of people seem to be a lot of people don't like what they consider to be like some sort of American pride that a lot of Americans have. I think there's nothing more proud than thinking that some stupid philosophy that failed everywhere else will actually work in your country. I mean, what makes you so much smarter than everybody else who tried that crap that you will make it succeed? I mean, it's contradictory. I mean, it makes no sense to me.
Yes, it makes absolutely. You're correct. You're completely correct. It makes no sense. I fail to understand how these people can actually promote such an idea, right? They have no pride in their country. The United States of America, they have zero pride. And they're a professor teaching kids, teaching impressionable minds about the ills of the very country that they live in. If you don't like our country, why don't you leave? But they'll never leave. They talk about the great things about China, right? Yet and still, they never been to China. They don't understand the atrocities that's going on in China. They talk about how, oh, this is so great. We love this topic. You have no idea. And it's a lack of education on their part to think that their ideas would somehow work, but yet and still the ideas of those who came before or the immigrants that came in and try to explain to them how it doesn't work. It doesn't work. We left that. It doesn't work. But yet and still they're too prideful. There's so much arrogance with these people. And I wish I could just slap them upside the daggone head and wake them up because they are going the wrong way.
I try to explain socialism as more of a philosophical idea, as a religion. I have seen how well it looks like a religious fanatic when you talk to a socialist. They have the whole system, you know. To them, God is the state. Then you have the you know, and God, the state is the only one that can bless you. You know, you can only achieve through the grace of the state. You know, there is no working for myself. It's only what the state can provide for me. And then you have the prophet, who is the your socialist messenger, who gathers the people to so that they can hear the will of the state. You know, the will of the, and you know, and the way that they talk about it and the way that they praise it. I think it's more like a religion or a cult or whatever you want to call it than actually a philosophy, because they, you know, it's like when you have a favorite team of sports, whatever sport you like, are most likely never going to change it because it's your team. You know, whether they lose or they, you will always say they're the best. You will, and you know, it's not a rational thing. It's absolutely away from being rational. And as we have seen that communism turned from more of a conservative way into a progressive way, we are seeing the disasters of mixing all these other ideologies that are so destructive. And I see it a lot in the States. You know, people always talks about the USA as the country that would you know, go around the world spreading their ideas of capitalism, and I see a country that's spreading all kinds of other ideas, maybe not through soldiers, but through the media. And that's, I mean, it worries me to see that a country that is crumbling with the kind of politicians that it has, because if you guys are not the strongest, then there's other guys that gotta be the strongest. And those guys I don't like.
I don't like them either. Trust me.
How do you feel about all these change that you're seeing in front of you, and how do you, what do you do when you see all these things happening and it seems like there's not much one can do about it?
It's very difficult. It's very disheartening at this point in time. I mean, we saw how it was with COVID. COVID, it was one of those things, like the U.S. reacted to COVID in such a visceral manner, and you would think that we've never experienced a virus ever before, you know, because we shut everything down. We tore apart our own economy. Everyone's running around with masks. Everyone, you know, it's pure hysteria. And it's so funny what you're saying about socialism, about it being more of a religion as opposed to philosophy. I say the same daggone thing with COVID. We've seen the religion of COVID crop up with Dr. Fauci, everyone worshiping every word that comes out of this man's mouth. And it's very indicative of kind of how the socialistic idea comes about. We have been experiencing a lot of different things where, you know, the government has been saying, hey, you can't go to work. No, you can't go to work. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. You must stay at home. You must shelter in place. If you dare go outside, we're going to set up a hotline for your neighbors and your friends to call to let us know that you're not at home, right? All these different, and we saw, I think the American people are starting to wake up, fortunately, because we saw what it is living in a top-heavy governmental system where the government controls everything. And we're giving a little bit of money. You must shut down. You must shut down your business. You must shut down this. You can't go to work. And we're going to give you this small little bit of money, and you're supposed to survive on that. And so I think the American people saw that. It's hard trying to get the message out. Well, it's easier now because people are living through one of the most worst economic times, you know, for America. Not the worst, but one of the worst. So they're understanding how bad things get. We're seeing grocery stores that are empty of supplies and goods and services and things of this nature. We've seen small businesses fail and or close down due to COVID and never open back up. So the American people are starting to see the atrocities that happens when you have a very top-heavy system. So the message is a little bit easier to get out. If this was 2020, if we're talking about 2020, it was horrible. It was a hard message to get out, the hard message to sell to the American people to get them to understand this is not how you want to live. But nowadays, I think it's a little bit easier. People are seeing it. People are living it. People are seeing the rising gas prices. People are seeing inflation. People are seeing that the elite, they can do whatever they want. They can go around without their masks on. They can go around and gather in these places that they say we couldn't. So now that people are seeing it, I think that people are starting to resonate. And that's why our president has such a low approval rating, because his policies are wildly unpopular. So the people are waking up. I just hope it's a little bit faster than what's going on right now.
Do you think he actually won the elections?
Oh, no. You can't convince me that this guy who barely campaigned, that barely came out the daggone basement, that had very little support, because I was always at the Trump rallies. I was at the Trump rallies non-stop, especially in Southern California, a blue area. And the amount of support in a blue area was astronomical, okay? And like I said, this is a blue area. I mean, blue as can get. This is as quote-unquote Democrat as it got. And it was just wild, massive rallies, wild, massive support. And then you have Joe Biden, who barely got out there and campaigned. He barely got out there. He couldn't even speak coherently. He was talking about, if you don't know whether you're voting for me or Trump, then you ain't black. Like, he was saying blatantly racist things. You know what I'm saying?
That was insane. It's always surprising to hear him talk, especially because you're like, I think when I look at him talk, I'm like, I don't know how they make him talk. There must be some sort of electronics going on in there, because this guy is brain dead. He must have been brain dead for a long time now, and somehow they're keeping him. He reminds me. Remember back when we were kids and they had all these animatronics? Remember the Sinclair family, that they were all dinosaurs, and it was like a sitcom of a dinosaur family, and they had like people with gloves and remote controls making these dinosaurs blink and talk. And
yes.
He reminds me of that. I'm like, it's amazing, scientifically speaking, that you can actually have, keep someone alive that long. But it's gonna get to the point where they're gonna have to figure something out. Kamala Harris is also a very hard to understand person for me. I don't know. I mean, I look at these people and I say, man, these people must be high all the time. They're probably, like using all kinds of drugs, and then they're like, yo, we have an interview, like freshen up, and because that's what it looks like. It's like when you see the movies about the singers and people from the 80s that were high all the time, and then they had to do an interview and they had to clean up a little bit and go to yeah. And I mean, what's going on with the people? I mean, I see what's going on in Canada. I thought the States was gonna be first, but
me too.
Kudos for Canada. I mean, it's great. But do you think you're gonna have the same thing?
Yeah, there was actually talks. There was whispers and rumors that's going to happen as far as them driving up to DC. And it's weird seeing this happen in Canada, because Canadians are very passive people. They're very, very docile, passive people. Oh, whatever you want to do. Okay, government, do it. Yeah. It seems like everyone is waking up, and I love to see it. So when we saw Canada take the helm, and we saw Canada and Canadians do it, we're like, well, we're the U.S. Why are we following Canada? They're supposed to be following us. But so I've heard of a lot of rumors. There's been a lot of rumors in the rumor mill that there's going to be similar protests here in America. I just can't wait to see it, if it's going to happen, because they're going to have our full support. Americans are sick of what's going on. Canadians are sick of what's going on. We're all sick of what's going on. This is not right. This shouldn't be happening. Justin Trudeau, he's an absolute, he's been wrecking Canada. He's a puppet, just like Joe Biden is. just like Kamala Harris is. They're all puppets, and they need to go. And I think the Canadian people are starting to wake up. The United States of America, our people are starting to wake up. The world's starting to wake up to the atrocities of what's been happening, and it's a beautiful sight to see. It really is.
You know, Trudeau, I know fact checkers will whip me on this, but he looks an awful lot like Fidel Castro. And his father was best friends with him, you know? It's like, dude, I mean, I don't want to say something awkward. It's like when you have the family meeting and, like, everyone's white, but one kid is black, and then you have the black neighbor that comes along, you know, like in the movies. Well, that's the thing with Trudeau and Castro. I mean, it's like, dude, add a beard to Trudeau, and I'm like, come on,
Dead
bro.
on.
Eh,
Oh man, they had a meme. They had a couple memes floating around. Of
Yeah,
them
I
looking
mean,
just like that. So,
you
yeah.
gotta have that talk with your mama, Justin, and settle the thing, you know, set the thing straight, because I don't know. And I see this whole, yeah, I mean, we see that politicians, we keep seeing, you know, we used to believe there was left and right. I think it's basically just people that work for the same people, and you know, how much do you trust, or what are your thoughts on the Republican Party? Trump aside.
Okay, Trump aside. Okay, now the Republican Party has been a very, especially back in the day, they did a lot for. They were more about America, and they were more about Americans. But then, you know, you go throughout history, probably to the 80s and 90s, they were more focused on fiscal policy. They forgot about the people. They lost touch with the base, and the Democrat Party was looked upon as the benevolent ones. So, you know, in the right, the Republicans, they lost touch with the culture. They completely let the culture go in favor of tax cuts and tax breaks. You know, so that's the evils of the Republican Party. They completely lost touch of the base, and now they're trying to come back due to Trump. Ever since Trump came into office, there's been an overhaul when it comes to republicanism, conservatism, things of that nature. And we're finally realizing and waking up that we need to attack the culture and take our culture back. There's a lot of crooked people, unfortunately, that are still within the Republican Party. The rhinos, you know, Republicans in name only, they are the people that are holding us back. There's a lot of new blood, though. That's why I have hope for the Republican Party. There's a lot of new blood that represent the people and the will of the people, and constitution, you know, our constitutional process and constitutional precepts. And we need to get back to that. And I think that the younger generation that are going into office, they're more of the type of people that are transforming the Republican Party to what it's supposed to be, and fixing all the ills that, and there's a lot of infighting. You know, we see a lot of different rhinos, you know, the older people like Mitch McConnell and, you know, Lindsey Graham and all these other senators and all these type of people that are not standing for republicanism. They're not standing for America, you know. So, and if we look at them like, you're just as crooked as the Democrats, you know, and that's a problem, you know, because the Democrats, they stand for everything that's anti-American now. They stand up for lawlessness. They stand for, you know, they stand, especially when it comes, goodness gracious, you know, we have a lot of mayors and governors that do nothing when it comes to crime. Crime has been running rampant in our cities and our states. And these leftist governors, these Democrat governors and Congress people, they don't care. You know, we watch how they act in public. You know, like I was talking about with the COVID. They go out to these arenas. They tell everyone to wear your mask, wear your mask, wear your mask. And they go out in public and they're with their elitist buddies and they're not wearing their mask, and they're telling us things, and they do something else, rules for thee, but not for me. You know, their policies are terrible. What's going on in the southern border is absolutely terrible. They don't care, you know, and it's just so much going on when it comes to the Democrat Party. And where we've gone wrong when it comes to the Republican Party is we haven't been vocal. We haven't been standing up for those issues. We haven't been taking the fight to the people. That was a pivotal moment back in the day, but Now I think we're starting to wake up. Now I think that we need to further separate ourselves from the Democrat Party and create that chasm to help people realize that we are not Democrats. We are clearly doing something for the American people. We actually care. And I think that slowly but surely people are waking up to that.
In every country, you have the legislative, the executive, and the judicial powers. People always talk about media as the fourth power. I think nowadays it's closer to the first than to the fourth.
Hey.
What would you do to say, okay, because you see that even though there's a lot of alternative media and people watch a lot more Joe Rogans than CNNs, a lot of people still wait for that official confirmation. Okay, like we have this idea, we want to run it by the big guys and see if they agree, and then it becomes true. And after all the fact checking process and everything, what do you think we could do to take some of that power back to the people, away from the mainstream media?
I think that what we have been doing is working. What we have been doing, because a lot of people, by droves, have been turning away from mainstream media and going to our alternative sources of media. You look at Joe Rogan as a prime example. He has so many more millions of viewers than CNN, MSNBC. A lot of people are losing interest in legacy media because they know that, especially I think this pandemic really opened people's eyes, right? The viewership has been dropping since then, but the pandemic really opened people's eyes. And they see the propaganda being pushed by legacy media. They see the lies, the manipulations, and deceits that they're pushing. CNN had a death counter when it came to COVID, showing all of the different deaths that day and that week. When have you ever seen something like this? And I try to explain that to people, and they see it and they recognize it and they think it's disgusting, right? So the American people are waking up. I think the world's waking up as well, as to the issues with mainstream media and how they peddle a certain narrative, and how they're constantly have a bunch of people who are telling you that you shouldn't be free and you should hate freedom, and that you should only listen to us, only listen to the public health experts, and only listen to these people that we approve of. And American people are like, well, we listened to this other person who said something counter what you said, right? And it worked. Some of these treatments, the vaccine is not working, but some of these treatments are, right? When you catch COVID, everyone's going to catch COVID at some point, right? So, the vaccines, you will never catch COVID and you will never pass COVID if you have this vaccine. Well, then we realize that you both catch COVID and pass it still with the vaccine. So it's like, when we come up with this message that is, when I say when the mainstream media comes up with this message that we have all the information, we have the truth, all this type of foolishness. And then you have people like Joe Rogan, who has people on who give you alternative ideas and alternative ways of thinking. When you have people like you who have people on who, tell the truth. Sometimes it's not always going to be what the people want to hear, but it's still the truth. If we continue to do that, we will continue winning the culture. We will continue winning the hearts and minds of people because they're starving for truth. They're not getting it from legacy media. They're not getting it from mainstream media. They're getting it from people like you. They're getting it from people like me. They're getting it from people like Joe Rogan, podcasts, Spotify, and things of this nature. This is all cropping up to be more important for the American people, for the people of the world, than any other legacy media outlet there is. So we're doing a daggone good job at getting the message out. I encourage you to keep putting out the truth. You may face some censorship, but at the end of the day, the people of this world, we really need the truth, and we're thirsty and we're hungry for it. So you keep putting it out, we will keep eating it up.
Steven, you're a Christian, right?
Yes, sir.
Something that one of the things I think when I see all the things that happened in the last 2 years, I see that the people were pretty much craving for a disaster, craving for some sort of punishment. I don't know why, but I looked at the people. Ever since the last couple of years, people's been desperate to hear the news. The Third World War is on. It's like
Yeah.
everybody wants
Yeah.
something bad
Yep.
happen to them. I think this is related to the fact that as people walk away from God, you start
Mm.
feeling that emptiness. You start feeling that loneliness of someone who is not doesn't have the spiritual companion of God. And I
Yep.
think that this is reflected on all this desperate need for the people to have some sort of punishment that they think that they deserve, but they don't want to realize that it's because they're walking away from God. I mean, I not too long ago I spoke to a lady who lives in the States who she's a pro-life fighter. She goes to the places where they do abortions and she protests. She's over 80 years old and she's been to jail many
Mm.
times. She'll probably go to jail again but she says I'll never stop. And she's like, they put me in jail and I preach to the people inside, and so she's like, it's a win-win. There's nothing they can do.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you think we can restore the people's interest in Christianity that's been attacked so much, especially by the media, the movies, and everything? They always want to attack Christianity. If you look at a movie from with a Christian family, they're always crazy and probably a
Mm-hmm.
a serial killer, and
Yep.
there's very weird people. Oh yeah, my family doesn't allow me to dance, like that movie with Kevin
Yeah.
Bacon back in the 80s. And then
Oh, Footloose. Footloose.
Footloose, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
dancing is forbidden, oh, this is the Christian thing to do. How do we restore people's trust and friendship with the Christian views?
Yeah, that's a difficult thing, especially here in America. We have been going down the rabbit hole of debauchery here in America. We took prayer out of schools, and it's been a downhill slide ever since. It's one of those things. You look in media, all they do is promote everything that's anti-God and anti-Christian. You look at Netflix and all these different shows, and they're just irreverent. They're disgusting. They're promoting all these things that are contrary to the will of God. So it's a hard thing to sell in this day and age, and the Bible promises that it will only get worse. It's hard to kind of bring an about face at this point in time, and I don't know if it's even possible to do. But for those, for those of us who are biblical, we understand that there's going to be a point in time when things happen like this, and it just gets worse and worse until he comes back, until Jesus comes back. So it's one of those situations we got to keep standing on the will of God and the Word of God, and we got to keep preaching to the masses. That's the only way we're going to get the message out. That's the only way. The more we put more morality into the mix, the better chance we have at waking people up. I know that they say you can't legislate morality, but I think that it kind of can be, because when it comes to murder, murder is a moral thing. It's not good to murder. We have laws against murder, so it is absolutely possible to legislate morality and at least get people thinking that there's some type of positive good to some of these things that are beneficial for society, morally speaking. It's going to be a hard battle. It's an uphill battle. It's an uphill fight. Is it possible? It's possible. I don't know if it's doable, given the current climate and how everyone's clamoring towards evil. But I take solace in the fact that I know that I'm on the right side, and I'm in God's favor. And I know that at the end of the day, I'm going to keep preaching the word. I'm going to keep, trying to put out the truth as far as the Bible is concerned, and as far as morality is concerned, and standing up for things that are right, things that are pure, things that are just. And like that woman, you were just discussing, the older lady. You can jail me, you can imprison me, and it's just going to embolden me to keep standing on that which I know to be right. And I aspire to be as brave as that woman you were talking about, because that's freaking awesome for a person to do that.
Yeah,
So
she's amazing.
it's gonna.
She's, you know,
Oh yeah.
she's Yugoslavian of birth. She was put in a concentration camp because she was a German descendant. After the Second World War, the communists took over and they put everyone who had German great grandparents into concentration camps, just like the German did to the Jews and such. And she was a miracle story of how she survived and how she managed to escape and then get to the States. And she's a I'll give you her phone number because I'm sure you're gonna want to talk to her. She's
Yeah.
an amazing person
Yeah.
and very inspiring. And she says, and then I get to the States and soon I start seeing another massacre. She says the massacre of the unborn children. And
Exactly.
here's something that I don't know. Maybe you can tell me better. Do the American people, especially the black people in the States, do they realize that this whole abortion thing was actually created to kill black people? Because that was like Margaret Sanger's idea was
Yep.
to get rid of what she considered undesirable races. Do the people ever think about that? Like, maybe I shouldn't do this because I'm actually doing, they want to exterminate us and I'm actually doing them a favor?
You know, it's one of those things that it always perplexes my mind. Do you not understand? I try to explain to these goodness gracious. I try to explain to them. Margaret Sanger was no hero. She was a big fan of eugenics. She believed that the undesirables should be murdered at will. And I try to explain that to the black population, and it's very hard to get through to their heads. Because they fall into this leftist trope and this leftist lies that it's all about a woman's choice. Ew, this is all about choice. Her body, her choice. No uterus, no opinion. They say all these spout these dumb leftist opinions. And I try to explain to them that that you are killing off our own people. Now, I'm more of like a humanitarian type of dude. So I think about everybody. I'm not just talking about black babies. I love white babies,
Oh, yeah.
all different colors, all different creeds. But when it comes to the black community, I try to reach them by helping them understand that you are killing off your own race. How do you not see that? The population of blacks in America is about 13%. As a population, percentage-wise, we have stagnated. We have not grown, not one bit. Every other population has grown, but not the black community, right? That's a problem. When in places like New York City, if you see a pregnant woman on the subway or you see her out in the street, she is more likely to get an abortion than she is to give birth. That's a problem. When the abortion rate is higher than the birth rate, that's a problem. And I try to explain to these individuals, you all talk about black power. Oh, black power, throw your black fist in the air, black power. But yet and still you're killing off your own people. How you're killing off your own future. How are you expecting to have this idea of black power when you're killing off the very future that's supposed to be supporting your black power? It just doesn't make sense. I don't understand how they don't get it. And every time I bring it up, they always bring up the same leftist ideas, leftist ideology that's been destroying the black community since forever. Okay? I talk about this, I talk about black on black crime, and I tell them, do you not understand that abortion is black on black crime? Do you not understand that? Do you not understand you are falling for the very wishes of Margaret Sanger? Do you not understand this? It's a hard pill. It's a hard pill to swallow, and a lot of them spit it out. But I'm going to keep preaching. I'm going to keep talking that talk because this is what's going on is genocide. It is absolute genocide, not just for the black community, but for all people, for everybody. This is disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, that's one of the conversations that I've had in my channel with many people. There's absolutely no rational way to defend abortion, and especially when you go to it's basically all the leftist agenda. If you go back, feminism is also a very corrupt philosophy. The whole abortion, the whole gender theory thing, and it's all corrupted. But especially with abortion, they're turning people into killers. The fact that
Right.
you maybe don't get to see the person that you're killing is not, you're not much better, than someone that actually shoots the person.
Right. Right. That's one thing that they think that because what do they say? There's a clump of cells. Oh, it's just a clump of cells. Oh, so when you want to dehumanize it, it's just a clump of cells. When you want to keep it because you want to you want to keep the baby, now it's a baby. But when you don't want to keep it, it's just a clump of cells. So explain the mental gymnastics that you have to go to make that argument. Right? It's murder through and through. I don't care how you try to paint it. I don't care how you try to cut it. It is murder. You are murdering an innocent being, an innocent human being. I just don't get it. I am so confused on how I am the bad guy for telling people, hey, don't kill your own kid. Shut up. You don't have a right to tell. That's a basic thing. Like, hey, don't kill your kids. Don't kill your kids. But yet, I'm the bad guy because I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, we're like at the top of the pyramid of social construct. How they talk about how gender is a social construct and everything. I mean, we've come to the point that human life is the value of human life is a social construct. I mean, construct. If your parents want you, then you are then a wanted person. Therefore, you are a human. If your parent, it's like even humanity is conditioned by these opinions of people, and this is insane. I mean, I've known of all kinds of other civilizations that killed their own infants. It was absolutely wrong. I don't think they thought of them as less human. I think they just didn't care. But the whole idea is that we sort of we cure the minds of people, telling them, you're still a good person, because everybody wants to be good nowadays. Back in the day, we used to be rebellious and we didn't care. Like, yeah, I'll do whatever I want. Nowadays, everybody wants to be nice. Everybody wants to be, woke and understanding and comprehensive, and yet they don't seem to care about basic things like human life. I mean, I see all these laws about animals, how animals are becoming more important than humans. I'm sorry, but if it takes human life to make animals more valuable, then remove all the laws for the animals and screw the animals, and let's have laws for people. Because there was a writer who said those cultures that worship animals sacrifice human, and that you're seeing that's absolutely true. I mean, you have people like Aldous Huxley that wrote this book, A Happy World, or something. I don't know the exact name.
Brave New World.
And he said, as they add new sexual freedoms, they remove your old freedoms, your basic ones. And we're seeing things like euthanasia, and they're pushing it so hard everywhere. In my country, they're even talking about including children into it, which is the worst of abominations. And I talk to a lot of people. In South America, when you say liberal, you mean it always refers to classical liberals, not to like Democrats. So a lot of these people, they believe in freedom and such, and I tell them, like, look, you're always preaching that the state, that the government is your enemy. Now you're letting the state, you're giving the state the power to kill you. And because they say, oh, no, now you have the freedom to kill yourself, because it has the word freedom, it sounds nice to them. But the same state that will always make you struggle with taxes, that's always stopping you from achieving your potential, they drive you to the top of the building, and now they're like, oh, by the way, if you want to, I can give you a little push. You have the freedom to ask me for that push. Isn't it great? And it's insane, and people don't connect the dots. I mean, it's
at all.
Steven, if you had to add 5 laws or remove 5 laws from your country, what would those be? Say that you are almighty Steven, and there's 5 laws that you can do whatever you want with them.
Oh Man, okay. Okay, first I would start off with outlawing abortion. Gone. Done. It's not happening. No more abortion. Welfare. Gone. See you later. Bye. No more welfare. Welfare has proliferated the black community and the blacks in general. It's been one of the worst things that has been implemented in the history of the United States of America. Welfare, you gotta go. Sheesh. What would I do after that?
Or maybe you can add some laws.
Okay. I can add, okay. Oof, goodness. That's a good question. I know, okay. I would also, especially when it comes to the war on crime here in America, they're very soft on crime. So I would implement laws and give the police all the resources they needed to be able to combat the rising crime in America. And I would give harsh sentences for criminals, automatic, especially if you are, a thug, you're terrorizing your community, you automatically get the max. You automatically get the max. I would implement laws, since I am a firm believer in the Second Amendment. I would implement laws in every single state, including the states where gun control is at its highest, which is Hawaii, California, and New York. I would make them two-way accessible. Everyone gets to carry a gun, right? You get a chance to defend yourself at will, because we see, like, I live in Arizona now, and I used to live in California. California, goodness gracious, it's rather hard to get a gun or get at least a exposed carry license. Here, you don't need an exposed carry license here in Arizona. There's a whole lot less crime here in Arizona because they know that if they run up on you, they might get shot themselves. So people tend to be on their best behavior. But in California, where there's gun-free, it's a gun-free zone. There's a lot of crime. And then the criminals know that there's nobody to stop them. So definitely, the whole state, the whole United States of America would definitely be able to carry firearms everywhere they go. Yeah, I would do that. What was that number? That was 4, right?
Yeah.
Let's see, one more. I don't know what number 5 would be. I think, I don't know. I'm gonna have to get back to you on number 5, but those would be the ones.
You can use that extra, the 5th one, for like something crazy. It doesn't have to be absolutely
something crazy.
You're like almighty, you can basically do, like, if it was me, that 5th one, I'd be like, no more pineapple pizza. Like, gone.
What?
I hate pineapple pizza.
I love pineapple pizza. It's the best thing.
Okay, you get your one. Say that you want to use the 5th one for something a little bit crazier.
Okay, my 5th one. Everyone is required to hit the gym at least 5 days a week for at least an hour. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I think that'll be a good one for me. I would love that. I would love that.
Well, I mean, it would have some good consequences. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of people. Well, some people that you see in the States, you don't see them anywhere else in the world.
Right.
And also, there's this whole hypocrisy of those people telling you to wear a mask because you're putting their life at risk. And I'm like, dude. Like, your 200 pounds of extra, thing is putting you at risk. I mean,
just saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's that, I mean, yeah, you can be whatever you want, but don't go around, telling people what to do if you're not gonna do the basic thing of being able to breathe by yourself.
Absolutely, it's just that simple. By all means, if you want to do whatever you want to do with your life, it's your freedom to do so. But don't go around wagging your finger at everyone else. Oh, you make sure you wear your mask. You make sure you take care of yourself. How about that? You know what I'm saying? Because those who die of COVID tend to have a whole lot of comorbidities, okay? So it's not the healthy guy that's typically dying from COVID. It's typically the person who's very unhealthy. And if you want to live that life, that's fine. That's your choice. But don't you dare wag your finger at me. Mr. Cheeto Man. Goodness gracious, boy!
Yeah, you know, the whole thing, with socialism, communism, whatever, is this idea that some people are smarter than, you know, the rest of the people, and they're smart enough to tell you how you have to live your life and to enforce that because it's the best thing for you. Very interestingly, I don't know if you're familiar with them. There were two scientists that did experiments on that subject. One of them was called, his last name was Milgram, and the other one was Ash. Milgram's experiment was, you had a sort of doctor type of person, and the people that was being tested. Then you had a glass and a person on the other side sitting on a chair. Now the other person was an actor, but he was the idea is that you ask him a question, then if the person gives the undesired answer, you give them a little electric shock to correct their behavior. Now it sounds creepy as it is, but it gets worse. As the experiment goes on, the scientists would tell you to up the current of that electricity, and the other person would act more like they were being hurt. The scariest thing is that 65% of the people were willing to give lethal doses of electricity to the other people to correct their thinking, you know? So that's scary because we're talking about general population. You know, the human, because you put an authority figure, and the person says, okay, so they must be right. So the fact that we are not used to question authority I think is a big problem. Then you have the other experiment done by Dr. Ash that's like mildly, you know, it's not as bad, but it's also worrying. He had 10 people, 9 of which were actors. They had to respond a question, and, you know, the 9 people would choose the wrong answer. The 10th person was actually the one that was being tested, and you know, 80% of the people would be agreeing with the other people even though they knew they were wrong. That is also a big problem. The fact that we lost trust in ourselves, in our capacity to use logic and to understand things, I think is very serious. You know, this whole thing of you know, there's the experts on things, and you know, the science, follow the science. The science is a very dangerous thing because it can be twisted into doing what, you know, what you want the science to be. I mean, you see it a lot in the news in the States. You know, they always start with a study shows that
experts say.
Yeah. And I'm like, bro, like, come on, that's not enough for me. Do you talk to like do you ever go to like schools and stuff to talk to younger people and to like teach them or share your experience with them?
I haven't gone to any colleges yet. I'm actually slated to do a bit of a tour starting next month to go to these different college campuses and talk to them. You know, I work for a conservative company called Turning Point USA, and we have a lot of different events. You know what I'm saying? So we have a whole lot of events with these kids come to, young adults, and we talk to them. We try to encourage them and give them some information, education, things of this nature, to try to not to think for yourself. You know, especially in a day and age where, like you said, there's a lot of followers, right? They just follow the science. You know, experts say, studies show this and that, yada yada, so on and so forth, and they don't do their own research. Because when you actually do your own research, you come to realize that the data that they're putting out is actually bunk. We have been saying for a long time, especially when it comes to COVID, that the masks don't work. You know, we've been saying that for so long. We say that on social media, we get censored. Now all of a sudden, finally, the experts have finally decided that masks now don't work, right? We've been telling them, just because you get the vaccine doesn't mean that you're not going to catch COVID. It doesn't mean you still can't transmit COVID. If you said that, you would get censored, you get shut down, you get shut up, right? Because the experts didn't say that. Well, guess what? Now the experts are saying that. It's what we've been saying. So, you know, we got to understand that we have the truth. We have the answers, and we have to be fearless in our approach to be able to put out the truth. And even if it's unpopular, the truth is wildly unpopular to those who can't handle the truth. right? They make sure they stay in their little bubble. They stay in their bubble and they don't seek any information outside of their bubble. They stay in their echo chamber. They don't want to hear any information outside of that. That's how it is on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these leftists are staying in their little echo chamber, within Twitter, thinking Twitter is real life. But in actuality, Twitter is not real life. What's real life is real life, being out here among people, talking to the people, talking to other individuals who have knowledge on the subject. Not everyone with a PhD has the best intentions, right? People can be bought out. Like you said, when people say trust the science, a lot of the science is skewed to a particular narrative based on the amounts of money, that is given to that particular person. Dr. Fauci is contradicting himself time and time again, but yet and still, people still believe him. Why? Because they're taught to. So we're teaching people, helping people understand that you can think for yourself. You don't have to rely on these bureaucrats and technocrats. And you don't have to rely on the Dr. Fauci. You rely on your own research. You rely on data and things that you can do for yourself to make yourself better, to make yourself a more educated person, to be able to combat the misinformation and the lies and the manipulations and the deceit, because a lot of these people have agendas. So it's up to us to go against the narrative. It's up to us to educate ourselves, and that's what we're doing, and that's what we're going to continue to push when it comes to these younger kids and these up and coming who are very impressionable. These are very impressionable minds, and it's up to us to fortify their minds with the truth.
Yeah, and I mean, if they don't believe you, just you can just punch them. You're very big.
That always helps, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, especially all these vegan kids, these known like trisexual, non-binary, semi-alien kids. They're very skinny, so you have this. Steven, tell me your goals for this 2022. What do you want to achieve this year? You seem to be the kind of person that sets goals and tries to, work them.
Yeah. I know a couple of my goals. I mean, I really want to get out to these kids and just encourage the next generation of people. I want to get out to as many college campuses as I can and just really speak to these young minds, fortify these young minds, help people understand that, you don't have to, be intimidated or scared to share your beliefs with the masses or different people that may disagree with you. Be strong, be resolute, and stand on the courage of your own convictions. So I really want to get out there. That's one of my goals, is to get out there as much as I possibly can and talk to these college students that are going through these indoctrination centers, these leftist indoctrination camps, with these leftist professors telling them that socialism is the greatest concept ever known to man, and that capitalism is terrible, and that God is horrible and he doesn't exist, and that Satanism is the way to go. Live your own life.
Both horrible and inexistent.
And he doesn't exist.
It's like, okay.
Well, the very fact that he's horrible means that you believe that he's there to be horrible. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know, it's insane. It's just
yeah.
But it's a great goal,
it's
and
dumb.
I mean,
it's dumb.
Something that I also try kids to understand is that people always talk about pride, and especially pride means you're proud of yourself for doing something very stupid, but a lot of people are cheering you for it, which is the whole LGBT thing. It's like,
yep,
bro, I mean, you're proud of just liking another dude. I mean, what about will you ever do anything worth being proud of? And so I try to tell him, look, everybody knows the truth, both the leftists and the people and the normal people. We all know the truth inside. Some people try to put all these coats of fake stuff on top of it, but in the end they know the truth. And you see all these people parading and cheering and how happy their lives they claim they are. Imagine how good you will feel when you actually help doing something really good. You'll see all that pride and all that cheering on yourself, but it will be for real, not for the crowd. So if everybody wants to feel good and everybody wants to feel appreciated, especially when you're young and you don't know where you fit and you're trying to look for a group of people that you can relate to. Imagine how good you will feel when you know that you defended the truth.
Exactly. Yep.
I mean,
I wish that
at
we
least
could
aim for
have that more. Yeah, exactly. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
In a normal world.
Yeah, I mean, let's be crazy. You know, we are there. You know how they say that back in the day it was a rebellious thing to be a socialist. Well, that's gone. You know, nowadays you are a rebellious person if you are on the right side, on the if you're a Christian. You are you guys. We are the new rebels. You know.
Yes.
I don't think even the word conservative fits us very well because there's not much to preserve. You know, there's we're actually. You know, if you look at the things the way they are now, we do not want to preserve those things.
No.
So you know, even the name, the name conservative is starting to be less fitting for us because we actually want to change the world. So
yes,
how
like we want to be the progressive now, but progress in the right way, in the right directions. Because
exactly.
What's going on right now, I don't want to conserve any of this. So I feel you.
Sorry about that. my
That's
phone
okay.
started ringing.
It's all right.
Steven, just a brief thing. You've been working with Turning Point USA. How just I don't want to make this too long. I'm sure you have things to do, but just like a brief thing. How did you get to work with them? Like, did they see you on the social media? Well, how did you get to?
Well, I was actually at a rally. It was at my third political rally, and I linked up with a guy by the name of Benny Johnson, and he works with Turning Point USA. And he was doing interviews at that time, and he was like, "Hey, can I interview you?" I was carrying this big old flagpole with the American flag and the Trump flag on it. You know, this was in 2000, I do believe, 2019, 2020. And I said, sure, let's do it. So he interviewed me. He was like, hey, I would love to have you in the studio for some other content. If you want to do some other content, I said, sure. So I went to the studio, the Turning Point studio here where I'm at. I'm actually at Turning Point right now. I came to the studio here and did a couple of videos. They took off, thank God. Glory to Him on that. And they really liked the what I had to say. So they had me be an ambassador, and then from ambassador they had me be a contributor. And from there, they started having me on their Turning Point USA live feeds and things of that nature. So it's been a very nice journey. I love this organization. I love what they stand for, and I'm gonna continue to rock with them as long as I can.
That's great, man. I just have is Candace Owens like the head of the organization or something like that?
No, she used to work with the organization. She used to work with the founder, Charlie Kirk. They used to go out there and just wreck shop. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she doesn't work with she works in tandem with Turning Point USA, but she kind of does her own thing now. She has her own organization that she does that she heads up. So she's a busy woman, and Godspeed to her.
Yeah, she's great. I mean, and it's also it was funny to see. I remember seeing her, Black Lives Matter people, protesting against her. I mean, it's like,
oh yeah.
There's those things that are so illogical. Like the other day when I don't know if you saw the video, these two old ladies pushing this guy out of the elevator and saying Black Lives Matter. It's like, bro, it's not like you're it's just it doesn't make sense. I don't know how to explain it. It's like
it doesn't.
It makes no sense.
It's illogical. It's illogical, but that's the psychosis that this weird, it's just weird. It's hard to describe that you're gonna push a black man out of the elevator while saying Black Lives Matter. Like that's just.
Yeah,
you don't have to do the right thing.
I love you, It's like you're stabbing them and saying, I want the best for you. Yeah, we live in a crazy world. That's for sure.
Yeah, that is true.
You did mention, I picked up this word when you were speaking. You mentioned the word technocracy. That's a concept that I learned not too long ago, and it's been driving me crazy because I see a lot of it.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know if you've seen this, but I remember reading Revelations chapter 13, verse 15, when it talks about, you know, the people that had to wear the mark of the beast in their hands and in their heads. Um, but I read a little before, and it says that this new beast, there was a new beast, and this new beast gave breath to the image of the beast. And I kept thinking, what does this mean? You know, giving breath usually in the scriptures means giving life.
Right.
You know, it says that God gave breath to Adam and stuff. And I thought, what does this mean? And to the way I think about it is, it's telling us that something, an object, something that was not alive, was giving life, and it was made the ruler of the world, and those who did not agree were murdered and such. And I keep thinking about this, you know, and I'm like, you know, what does it mean? And not too long after, I see that, for example, China has an attorney that's actually an artificial intelligence. You know?
Oh boy!
And they have a TV presenter that's actually an artificial intelligence. So I'm like, oh, I see where this is heading. You know, it pretty much sounds like it will come the time when an artificial intelligence will be the ruler of, you know, the unquestionable ruler because of science. You know, it's like, oh, it's science. You cannot deny science. You know, it's like that movie with Will Smith, you know, I, Robot, when the thing says, my logic is undeniable. My logic is undeniable. You know, it's like, that's also, if I think to all of those who are Christians, and I try to tell them and stress this point very well, in your debates, I know we usually try to debate in a secular way and use science, but don't forget, at least at the end, add the Christian point of view.
Yes.
Because the problem with science is that as technocrats bring along this concept of science being the ultimate, you know, way of doing things, a lot of people who believe in science over all things, who are conservative, will also end up falling for that. And it is important that as Christians, we are first Christians and after scientists, or whatever you want.
That's it. I agree. I 110% agree, brother. That is spot on. I agree.
Thank you. So, well, I'll probably be finishing I'll probably be cutting the interview around here. I just wanted to add a couple of things that I will not be including. Well, I'm a huge fan. I've had a great time. You know, I'm not a native English speaker, but I understood everything you said, so I'm happy about that too. You know, I lived in the States and I went to school for like 6 months, and so that's where I learned my English. I like the country a lot. I went there around 2002. You know, back when this whole progressive